I would now like to provide our assessment of growth and inflation. First, I would like to take up growth. Available data for Q3 and Q4 of the current financial year, that is 22-23, indicate that economic activity in India remains resilient. Urban consumption demand has been firming up, driven by sustained recovery in discretionary spending, especially on services such as travel, tourism, and hospitality. Passenger vehicle sales and domestic air passenger traffic posted robust year-on-year growth. Domestic air passenger traffic crossed pre-pandemic levels for the first time in December 2022. Rural demand continues to show signs of improvement as tractor sales and two-wheeler sales expanded in December. Several high-frequency indicators also point towards strengthening of activity. I have listed out some of the high-frequency indicators which show improvement and strengthening of activity in the footnote of my statement. As you know, the statement will be uploaded in the RBI website. So if you are interested, you may like to have a look at it. Investment activity continues to gain traction. Non-food bank credit expanded by 16.7% as on January 27, 2023. The total flow of resources to the commercial sector has increased by rupees 20.8 lakh crore during 22-23 so far, as against 12.5 lakh crore rupees a year ago. Indicators of fixed investment, that is cement output, steel consumption, and production and import of capital goods registered robust growth in November and December. In several sectors such as cement, steel, mining and chemicals, there are signs that additional capacity is being created in the private sector. According to the RBI survey, seasonally adjusted capacity utilization increased to 74.5% in Q2 22-23. The drag from the net external demand, on the other hand, continued as merchandise exports contracted in Q3 22-23. On the supply side, agricultural activity remains strong with good rabi sowing, higher reservoir levels, good soil moisture, favorable winter temperature, and comfortable availability of fertilizers. PMI manufacturing and PMI services remained in expansion at 55.4 and 57.2 respectively in January 23. Turning to the outlook, the expected higher rabi output has improved the prospects of agriculture and rural demand. The sustained rebound in contact-intensive sectors should support urban consumption. Broad-based credit growth, improved capacity utilization, government's thrust on capital expenditure and infrastructure in the union budget recently presented should bolster investment activity. Let me repeat, broad-based credit growth, improving capacity utilization, government's thrust on capital spending and infrastructure should bolster investment activity. According to our surveys, manufacturing, services and infrastructure sector firms are optimistic about the business outlook. On the other hand, protracted geopolitical tensions, tightening global financial conditions, and slowing external demand may continue as downside risks to domestic output. Taking all these factors into consideration, the real GDP growth for 2023-24 is projected at 6.4%. I repeat, the real GDP growth for 2023-24, that's for the next financial year, is projected at 6.4%, with Q1 at 7.8%, Q2 at 6.2%, Q3 at 6%, and Q4 at 5.8%. The risks are evenly balanced. I would now like to turn to inflation. Headline CPI inflation moderated by 105 basis points during November-December 2022. from its level of 6.8% in October 22. So October 22, it was 6.8%, and by end December, I mean going by the December data, there was a moderation of 105 basis points, and that was quite a significant moderation. This was due to a softening in food inflation on the back of sharp deflation in vegetable prices, which more than offset the inflationary pressures from cereals, protein-based food items, and spices. As a result of this earlier than anticipated steeper seasonal decline in vegetable prices, inflation for Q3 22-23 has turned out to be lower than our projections. Core inflation, that is CPI excluding food and fuel, however, remained elevated. Going ahead, the food inflation outlook will benefit from a likely bumper Rabi harvest led by wheat and oilseeds. Mandi arrivals and Kharif paddy procurement have been robust, resulting in improvement in buffer stocks of rice. All these developments augur favorably for the food inflation outlook in 2023-24. Considerable uncertainties remain on the likely trajectory of global commodity prices, including price of crude oil. Commodity prices may remain firm with the easing of COVID-19 related restrictions in some parts of the world. The ongoing pass-through of input costs, especially in services, could keep core inflation at elevated levels. The commitment to fiscal consolidation that has been carried forward in the Union Budget 23-24 and the future trajectory of reducing the gross fiscal deficit will engender an environment of macroeconomic stability. This augurs well for the inflation outlook. Further, the low volatility of the Indian rupee relative to the peer currencies limits the impact of imported price pressures and other global spillovers. Taking into account these factors and assuming an average crude oil price Indian basket at $95 per barrel, inflation is projected at 6.5% for the current financial year, that is 2022-23, with Q4 at 5.7%. On the assumption of a normal monsoon, CPI inflation, now I am giving the projection for the next year. On the assumption of a normal monsoon, CPI inflation is projected at 5.3% for 2023-24, with Q1 at 5%, Q2 at 5.4%, Q3 at 5.4%, and Q4 at 5.6%. The risks are evenly balanced. Headline inflation has moderated with negative momentum in November and December. But the stickiness of core or underlying inflation is a matter of concern. We need to see a decisive moderation in inflation. We have to remain unwavering in our commitment to bring down CPI headline inflation. Thus, monetary policy has to be tailored to ensuring a durable disinflation process.